This is my grandfather's house. It was built in the late 1970s during a tumultuous time in my family. The house followed a divorce from my grandmother, and bankruptcy for my grandfather followed the building of the house. The strange home always felt like a taboo subject in my family. For decades, the house sat there, uninhabited and abused by trespassers. Until recently, my aunt purchased the home. The time seemed right to make a documentary and gain some closure on the subject. As we drove north, drinking coffee and discussing the house, it became evident that I did not really know how to approach the subject. Days went by at the cottage, sitting by the fire and discussing politics. Finally, I sat the family down for a roundtable discussion.
And that was the whole basis of building that house, was to have as inexpensive heating costs as possible. That was his big motivation.
Right.
Because I remember talking to him about it, and he said to me, he said below the thermal grade or whatever that's called, it's 55 degrees, which I don't really know even if that's true. I think that varies more than, but this was back in the 70s. And he said, so I'm going to build a house that's automatically 55 degrees, and I only have to moderate the temperature 10 degrees to keep comfortable year round.
Remember, is we had the energy crisis, and there was a big movement towards green, and it stopped. We landed up, throwing Carter out. Sweaters were against, you didn't have to wear sweaters anymore. Ronald Reagan came in, he had a hat, he rode horses, and the energy crisis was over. Right?
Yeah.
Until it wasn't over. You know what I mean? That's what happened.
His next big project was this. It turned out to be his last project and his most unfortunate project in terms of financial and
finding something.
his health, which is, a whole other story.
In the end, it was just too big, and it was a good idea that went wrong. He bit off more than he could chew. Because if you see similar houses, they're about a third the size.
But if his goal was to build a house that it was naturally 55 degrees year-round, he made that goal.
It did,
right.
yeah.
It accomplished that.
It did work.
Fact,
It did work.
It worked.
Right.
So the concept actually worked. It's just that he forgot one thing. He actually had to live in it.
Right.
That was the part that he never really, he was more into the process. As I was telling you the other day, I think he was all about the process, working it out, figuring out the engineering and all that kind of stuff. And he did it, he accomplished that goal, but then, like I said, he forgot, he had to live it.
Right.
And he wasn't, when I was there with him, it wasn't exactly his pride and joy. I always felt that it was dark and dingy, and that was his mood. And of course, there's other things that affected that mood, but being in that environment really affected that mood.
Right.
His life was falling apart at the time.
Dad was able to have this group of people that whatever he did, he was a genius.
Right, that's
Whatever he did with us was not a genius. Come on, Dad, it's cold up here. We need a fire, you know what I mean? We were like, it's a totally different thing. I always thought it was ugly as a dog. I mean, I hated it. I hated the house. I did not like it. I thought it was ugly. I did not like it.
I think it's kind of grand when you approach it and the doors are open.
Are both ends open?
Can you get from one side to the other inside?
Yes, yes.
So turn on your flashlight.
I don't know, yeah. Look at this great fireplace.
But something happened.
Oh, they turned it off.
Yeah. Because the circuit breakers are still on.
Wow.
Oh, it's neat.
And I think it's fireplace.
But I don't know, if Jan, when you were here, did we have a kitchen up here?
I don't remember, because we never even came up here.
Oh, okay. Be open. Can you
I mean, it's not aesthetically pleasing.
At 80, by 80 use of the word.
To me, it's not.
No.
No. It's crudely done too.
She's gotta have
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. You would not say it has a fine piece of workmanship.
No. No, it's not.
Probably not, and I think our challenge is really to try to figure out what to do with it, if keep it, or really to tear it down. And Mary Grace, obviously, and Kurt would make that final decision, but they are looking for ideas, you know.
I think they're
what do
hoping to
with
go
it.
into it too sometime.
That would help. Yes, they have to go into it.
Just thought I'd get that on film.
So I think our job is to kind of think about the house and see if it really should be torn down, and the land actually brought back to the original land.
Now I see it like, you know what, Dad, this was a really good idea, and this is something that's very interesting. And now I'm sort of looking at it as how other people see it instead of my own vision. Because I always saw it as the daughter of my father, like, why did you do this? Now I'm looking at it like through your eyes and Alice's eyes and people that I meet, like, you know, this is really cool. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to take a step back and look at it a little differently. And I think that's why it's a good thing that I bought it. I bought it because I wanted to own the story. I was tired of people telling me my father's vision when they knew nothing about my father. And I thought it was important to keep it in the family and let us decide. And I'm not going to make the decision by myself. I think I'm going to make it together of what the future of this house is for the family during that period that he was building that house. So we don't really have good memories of that whole time. So I think for now, though, we can kind of step away from it and see it in a different light, which I think is good. I think it makes you forgive my father and understand his genius, really. You know, understand his vision. I think it's good therapy. That's what I think. So when I bought it, Andy, I can tell you when I bought it, I kind of was like, okay, Pop. You know, it was kind of a release for me. It was like, oh, now I own it. Now I can control it. And, you know, now I can kind of let him go.